Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for asking Harmony Consulting Committee to assist you in solving the issues surrounding homelessness in Hennepin County. Today we will propose to you a three-part plan that we believe will greatly enhance the lives of those struggling with homelessness in Hennepin County. Today with me are my colleagues, Brianna, Public Relations Coordinator, Sarah, Communication Support Specialist, Alexis, Housing and Financial Advisor. Lastly, I'm Hannah, and I am the Program Manager of this initiative. Hennepin County is a fast-growing community with many health and social services available. It is home to more than half of Minnesota's homeless population, in which 83% experience physical or mental illness of some sort. Despite the vast number of resources, homelessness is still an issue in Hennepin County. Let's take a look at our cases. Here are three examples of people struggling with homelessness in Hennepin County. Although there are unique differences, each experiences very similar issues related to housing, mental health, and physical health. For example, Anthony Bennett has issues with housing as he has been homeless for 10 years. He is currently staying in shelters. Cole Ditton doesn't like shelters, and he finds himself sleeping throughout the city on most nights. Lastly, Elaine Fisher has been homeless as well, and she stays with friends or in shelters. We have identified 5 root causes to the problems within Hennepin County and homelessness. We utilized the 5 why root cause analysis in order to understand these problems. If you would like to understand our pathway or thinking process through these problems, please refer to the supplemental packet on pages 3 and 4. The 5 root causes are as follows. Lack of resources dedicated to establishing long-term, no-rules housing opportunities. Lack of an effective system to track homelessness or record homeless people's data. Programs lack true patient-centered efforts applicable to unique patient needs and situations. Lack of effective means of communication between health resources to one another and to their patients. And finally, lack of an effective communication tool to enable connection between already available community resources. My colleague Bree will now discuss our proposal.
In order to address the problems identified by our root cause analysis, Harmony Consulting has developed a 3-part nonprofit organization which will serve to coordinate existing community resources, deploy a homeless management information system, and also create a new and innovative housing opportunity. Again, we want to recognize the steps that Hennepin County has already taken to solve the homelessness issue. And we want to strive to improve the community, the collaboration, and the unity of the already invaluable resources present. Along this theme, we have proposed the name of this nonprofit organization be Hennepin United. There are 3 key areas of Hennepin United. First is the Community Council, which will be headed by Assistant Directors of Community Relations. Second is the Homeless Management Information System, which we will call Hennepin Connected. And third is the Hope Housing Complex, which will be headed by Assistant Directors of Housing. The Board of Directors will consist of unpaid members of society as per Minnesota's Council of Nonprofits rules. The board's specific roles have been outlined in the slide as well as on your supplemental packet. Importantly, they will be responsible for ensuring that Hennepin United achieves its mission, vision, and values. Our proposed mission for Hennepin United is to acknowledge the individuality of each person of Hennepin County and connects them with the unique resources necessary in order to further their health and security. The Community Council is also an important aspect of Hennepin United, as it will ensure improved communication among the community members, the homeless persons, and the resource leaders. Involving resource members is also important to ensure direct feedback about the implementation of our homeless management information system, Hennepin Connected, which my colleague will now talk to you about further, Ms. Sarah.
So through our research and our root cause analysis, we identified that Hennepin County does indeed have the resources it needs in order to address its homeless population. But we decided to dig deeper. Why is there still a large homeless population in this county despite the multitude of services? Overall, we found that there was a lack of communication among the resources, and we were unsure if they were all working together towards their common goal. We decided to approach this systemic issue with a systemic approach, a link to connect all the resources together. Many other cities have been battling the crisis of a large homeless population, including Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Seattle, and San Francisco. These cities have taken to a new idea, a homeless database. They have partnered with a reputable company called BitFocus, where they are able to create a homeless monitoring information system customizable to their city's needs. San Francisco has recently launched their homeless database in August of 2018, and within 3 months, they had nearly 3,500 homeless people registered in their database. Our solution, therefore, is to create a large multi-user database for Hennepin County. This will help to improve the communication between each of the resources and to improve the quality of care provided to the homeless population. We decided to name it Hennepin Connected because that's exactly what we intended to do, connect everybody. Eventually, we do hope that every resource available in Hennepin County will be able to access our database. But for now, in our initial startup, we have chosen a small group of facilities and resources to implement the initial project. The database will be HIPAA compliant and a safe, secure method of storing data through BitFocus's system. The main goal of our database is to improve communication. All facilities will have access to the basic profile of a homeless person and be able to add a new profile for the homeless persons who come in contact with their facility. The homeless persons will also have access to their profile, ensuring that they are included in their quality of care. Communication through the portal will not only be through just the facilities, but from a homeless person to a facility, medical provider, and more. The inspiration for our database came from an electronic health record. Therefore, we wanted to improve a new quality of care. We found through our research that most homeless rely on the emergency room for their primary care. This is both costly and ineffective. Our database will be able to act as an electronic health record, storing health records, health histories, medications, office visits, and more. No longer will a homeless person be a new case every time they walk into a facility, but rather a case builded upon in our system. We have identified 3 main goals for our database to achieve, seen as here. No longer will each facility be starting from scratch, but they will be able to see what has or has not worked for each person in the past and what work is still further needed. We want to make sure that each homeless person who comes in contact with the resources feels as they are a human being and leaves satisfied rather than disappointed. Our database will be a new breakthrough in the way that we provide care to the homeless population and provide efforts towards reducing the number of chronic homeless people in Hennepin County. Hennepin did have a 10-year plan beginning in 2005 and ended in 2015 aimed at ending homelessness. One shortcoming of this project was a lack of effective data. Our database will streamline the collected data, allowing the medical community to monitor trends that will better provide them care for future populations. As an example, case CD, Cole Denton. Cole Denton has arrived to the emergency room with an asthma attack. He frequently visits the emergency room for asthma. His nurse treating him is able to see this after she's entered him into the Hennepin database. She will able to see that he is frequently suffers from chronic asthma, and he only receives inhalers when he visits the ER, which he runs out of quickly. She will be able to connect him through Hennepin Connected to a local nonprofit pharmacy who can provide medications for him and renew them, where he will be able to contact them as well and say when he wants them renewed or picked up. Now my colleague Alexis will talk about our 3rd initiative, Hope Housing.
So the need for affordable housing is an undeniable issue, and Harmony Consulting Committee would love to do something about that as well. The Housing First approach has been utilized by Colorado, Utah, and many other states successfully battling homelessness. It's also the foundation of Finland's approach, a country that's essentially eradicated homelessness altogether. Housing First is the concept that housing and shelter are basic human rights and a basic human need. The time, the energy, and the resources that an individual is contributing to get back into society cannot be done or done efficiently if that individual can't meet the need for housing first. Hennepin County even did a study in 2009 as part of their 10-year plan to end homelessness. The surveys done in this study revealed that it's clear this is what the people want, their own place and as quickly as possible. However, even though the survey was in favor of the housing first approach, no significant changes were made to the rapid rehousing and entry programs that were currently in place. So, the Harmony Consulting Committee would like to build a 60-unit apartment complex in Hennepin County. Now, this unit is meant to house 80 individuals for a minimum of 12 months with no entrance or housing criteria other than having suffered from chronic homelessness. While residing in these apartment complexes, the tenants will still receive help from the resources and services involved with Hennepin United to further assist them in areas of need and to continue to improve their quality of life. This complex will also serve as a sense of community, which has been proven to help facilitate transition back into society for individuals suffering from homelessness. An outreach team will journey into the homeless encampments in Hennepin County as a method of marketing for Hennepin United. They will advertise the Hennepin Connected and encourage individuals to register. Then 80 individuals that registered as chronically homeless will be selected to move into the Hope Housing Apartment Complex. While I did say chronic homelessness was our only entrance criteria, any individuals that register with a chronic illness as well will take first priority to the housing. So yes, it costs a lot of money to make housing specifically for people that can't afford it. But it does cost the state and the county, or it saves the state and the county a lot more in the long run. Studies done by Denver, Utah, and San Francisco show that just one individual living on the street can cost the state over $63,000 a year in inpatient expenses, mental health services, shelter expenses, emergency services, and incarceration expenses. When looking at the 80 individuals that would be rehoused into Hope Housing, they're currently costing the state over $5 million a year collectively. Another study done in Philadelphia showed that just within the first year of rehousing a homeless individual, the state saves 35% of those costs. That savings increases by 10% every year that that individual remains in housing. So by the 5th year of providing housing to these individuals, the state is only spending about $13,000 per individual per year compared to that $63,000 when they were on the street. This graph represents the overall expenses and revenues for the first 5 years of Hennepin United and its projects. The first year is the most expensive because it includes the construction and building costs for Hope Housing. The revenues for the first year mostly consist of grants in which we intend to apply for to cover the cost for the housing. In the first year, we also have startup costs for Hennepin United with employment and our Hennepin Connected technology system. And we've recommended some budget reallocation for county and state funds within that first year to cover those startup costs. For the remaining 4 years, the expenses include the operating costs for Hennepin United employment, Hennepin Connected, and the Hope Housing Apartment Complex. The revenues for the remaining 4 years includes recommended budget reallocation from the county and the state, as well as money back into the state from rehousing 80 chronically homeless individuals. The purpose of this graph is just to show the money back into the state funds compared to the cost of operating entire Hennepin United and its projects.
We have developed 4 goals following the SMART method to ensure that Hennepin United is making a measurable impact in the community. Our goals are to achieve specific numbers for community council meetings every year, also to have a specific number of members enrolled in Hennepin Connected every year, and also to have a specific number of people housed in the Hope Housing Complex. The Board of Directors will have an important role here in assessing the achievement of Hennepin United's goals. They will monitor the data and the feedback from Hennepin United's 3 key projects and lead them towards any necessary changes.
Now we'd like to refer back to the 3 individuals that we introduced at the beginning of this presentation so we can tell you how their lives could look 5 years after the implementation of Hennepin United.
Anthony Bennett was the first tenant in Hope Housing, in which he still resides. Through Hennepin Connected, he was able to upload his resume to the database. Target, a local Fortune 500 company, came across his resume and he is currently employed in their warehouse. He is finally excited to go to work. Lastly, he has also used the database in order to schedule and keep track of his dental appointments, increasing his access to healthcare.
Cole Denton moved into Hope Housing after he realized that they were true to their no rules reputation. After 12 months, he was able to move into his own apartment closer to work. Through Hennepin Connected, Cole was referred to a young adult support group in order to start aiding his mental health issues. Also through Hennepin Connected, he found a job through Best Buy, where he discovered his new love for technology. He was inspired to go back and obtain his GED and then further his education in technology.
Elaine Fisher and her daughter were provided with a case manager through Hennepin Connected, who was able to arrange for them a women's health provider. Not only this, their case manager was also able to procure Elaine and her daughter a temporary space in a crisis shelter until Elaine was able to afford a down payment on an income-based facility. Elaine also, excitingly, was nominated for the Community Council, in which she used her new position and her new voice to raise awareness about the issues of domestic violence and abuse among the homeless individuals. She also used her new standing in order to help create a new support group for women and their families who have experienced domestic abuse.
The Harmony Consulting Committee believes that what we have proposed to you today is the best way to utilize what Hennepin County already has and is already trying to do in order to better the system and truly make some serious changes and impact on the lives of the individuals and their health for individuals suffering from chronic homelessness. We'd like to open up the floor to questions.
You talked about some measurements and all. Do you have measurements for the financial part of it? And I know you said like this is where the state, would have the cost, and if they're in a house and this saves money, but do you have quantitative data about the financial savings?
Yeah, there were studies that I found a multitude of studies from all over the place because I was looking at kind of specific areas of where most of the money was going, like emergency services, inpatient expenses is up there, as long as mental health and services and actually incarceration expenses. Those were kind of the categories that I found as a similarity throughout them. And so I found a couple different studies that did 1-year studies, 2-year studies, and 5-year studies showing trends down in those areas at the same time as providing housing opportunities for homeless. So they were getting more homeless people into housing, and those costs were going down. And those were in our resources, the studies that we used for that.
I'm intrigued by your idea of wanting to build this one big housing unit. Let's say I'm on the city council and you're trying to impress me that this is a great idea. And I say, well, we tried that years ago with indigent people in our community, turned into the projects, and it was a big, horrible crime scene that ended up costing us a whole lot more trouble and money than it would have been otherwise. So convince me that this is a good idea.
I think that's a great question. So there's a lot of research out there that, especially specifically for Housing First, that we really tangled through, and everyone's saying, this is it. And that was actually a question that we were anticipating being asked, because times are changing a little bit. And there was a study that compared what Salt Lake City was doing and San Francisco. And one of the key points that they found, they're both trying to initiate Housing First and rapid rehousing, but what Salt Lake City did was they took the time and the energy to place those people in areas within the city that would not let them fall back into the stigma and the reputation that kind of behooved them. They really focused a lot of energy of putting them in areas in the city that would motivate them to be better people and be healthier and follow back into society versus continuing to outlie against society. So that would be one thing that I would definitely highlight.
And also with that, we realized that a key issue in housing people is the requirement you have to be married, you have to have these requirements. And people weren't liking those requirements, they weren't wanting to abide by them, so they were staying on the streets. So almost by having all those rules, it exacerbates chronic homelessness and doesn't help the problem at all.
Another big issue is the sobriety. We were offered a handbook for the streets, which lists the resources for Hennepin County specifically, and a lot of the long-term housing facilities that weren't just short-term shelters required people to be sober in order to live there. And whereas the Housing First idea is that we want to give them a place to live, they can be sober if they want to, and then we can focus on those areas of life where they need assistance.
So in conclusion, to best finish off answering your question, we really tried to create a different kind of housing, because if it was, they had landlords down their neck and rent and stuff, that's kind of where it creates this tense and uninhabitable environment that kind of reverts it back to that. And we did a lot of research on Finland's program that they found that by actually being less restrictive and less controlling of it, it motivated the individuals to be better and to seek sobriety, to work harder at getting jobs, and to really make do for themselves by providing this specific kind of environment.
So let's say, so building this building is dependent on getting all these grants. Let's say you don't get that money in the first year, so you got to put that off a little bit. So Cole, your solution was put in the building, and he doesn't trust shelters. So how are you going to get him to opt into this database? Because this guy he doesn't trust shelters. He isn't going to trust his information out there. So what do you do for people like that, let's say the housing is not immediate?
Ideally, wherever where Cole or whoever else, wherever their first point of contact, that is ideally where and when we would like them to be enrolled into Hennepin Connected, because we want to involve all these resources, not just where they're living, not just the hospitals, but also where he goes to get his free meals every day, these locations. And the more resources that we can add into Hennepin Connected, the more reach we'll have towards individuals who are using these resources. And while they might not want help right away, especially Cole, because he has some mistrust in the system, if he would be enrolled in it, or at least if these people or the resources could keep track of which resources he's using, where it is he seems to run into problems, maybe they can help him come up with a solution without him having to be like, I need this exactly and no one's providing it to me, and now I don't trust anything. So we hope for it to be kind of more of a holistic, like every part of the person, and not just the home.
Also piggybacking off of that, one of our root causes was that the programs lack true patient-centered efforts applicable to unique patient needs and situations. So we're hoping that by becoming more patient-centered, we will gain his trust, and he will understand that we truly want to help him, enabling him to feel like he can tell us what he needs to in order to get the help that he needs.
Also, the homeless population does form a sense of community. So we're hoping that through others coming into contact with Hennepin United, that they will be able to spread their knowledge, and that the fact that Hennepin United has been helping them throughout their community, and these people will go, wow, maybe I should enter into that system, or maybe I should go look into that housing for help. So.
Speaking of resources, you mentioned that after 1 year you would have 30 resources accessible, and then 80 by the end of the 5th year. Do you know how many resources we're talking about?
The exact number of resources, I don't think I went through and actually counted, but there was a 60-page document of individual resources that CLARION referenced and that we also referenced. They called it the Handbook for the Streets. I'd say there's well over 100, 200 different either health, food, shelter, crisis centers. So I feel like 80 by the end of 5 years would be a feasible thing to do, hopefully because we'd have the community involved in this and they would want to be a part of it.
In our research, along with some of the supplemental information that CLARION provided, we do know that there's 22 shelters in Hennepin County specifically, and then also with diving through trying to find out, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was missing, and so we found so we were, for the resources that would be involved, we got the shelters, we found about 12 different drop-in clinics just from Googling drop-in clinics. ER services, we wanted at least 3 of the ERs in the Hennepin County, Minneapolis area because they see a lot of them. There's food banks, there's closet shelters that provide lots of clothing, there's community centers that we wanted. Then we get into the healthcare side, there's a lot of health clinics listed in the Handbook of the Streets for Minnesota that we really wanted to include, along with specific types of healthcare, women's health, dental, pediatric, and family services. So we felt like those were attainable numbers.
In terms of your grants for the structure, have you had any communication with U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development? And what have they told you?
I have not had communication with them. I was just looking for grants in the area that were, they're grants for the purpose of similar projects, and they're given for those working on the same problems with homelessness. And so I really looked at ones that were the mission and values of the organizations that provide the grants that lined up with ours.
And she listed the specific grants on our supplemental on page 11.
I looked at more local stuff in Minnesota, and Heading Home Hennepin, Minnesota Housing, they had a lot of grants, and I didn't really need to look much further than that. They had a lot of options.
I really like your idea about getting some kind of way to get better data on the homeless with your connected plan. But it sounds like it's portal dependent, and one of the issues for homeless people is access to computer services, etc. So tell me about your plan for how you're actually going to engage people and really being a part of this plan.
Answer that last question. So research does show that homeless people tend, like the one necessity that most homeless people still carry is a phone. So we intend obviously for them to be able to access through their phone, but a lot of homeless people also use resources such as the library. And we saw through Hennepin that a lot of the libraries actually do see a large homeless population coming in to use their computer. So that's what we intend for them to use in order to access their portals. And they can also always go to a drop-in facility, which are intended as day facilities for them to go in and use resources such as computers and things like that. So obviously homeless people, you have that question of, well, how are they going to access the internet? But they do have the resources and their means. They've just made it a priority in their lives to have a cell phone or to be able to access a computer because our world is so technologically connected nowadays.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.